All right, this is our second webinar in the Future Proof series from Edge of Search, also sponsored by Firewire Digital. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Shaunavi. I'm the head of community and field marketing at Firewire Digital and the co-founder of Edge of Search, a unique search marketing conference we host in Newcastle, New South Wales. Our guest today is Brogan Renshaw. He is the director and innovation lead at Firewire Digital. Brogan launched Firewire, which is a specialist SEO and Google Ads agency, in 2018, I believe. I joined the team in 2020, and over the past 6 years, we have grown from a little band here to I think we've got eight people on our team, which is amazing. We work with clients both all around Australia and internationally as well, and we were recently shortlisted for Best Small Agency at the Global Search Awards, which was super exciting. Still blown away by that. And we are both the founders of Edge of Search, so Brogan's the other co-founder there, where we focus on collaborative search strategies to bridge the gaps across digital. Quick FYIs before I hand over to Brogan to get started. Please feel free to use the chat to share comments or your thoughts with us throughout the presentation. It's really good to see you guys react in real time. And if you have any questions for Brogan, we will do a Q&A after the presentation, and there is a Q&A section. So pop your questions in there, and then we'll try and get through as many as we can at the end. All right, Brogan, the floor is yours.
Got it. Okay, guys. So what I really wanted to touch on today is kind of getting started with agents and Claude. How not to be scared of it, then how to get the most out of it starting out, because there's lots of lessons that I've learned over, even the past month that, I wish I had when I first started out in Claude Code. And I see hundreds of bloody LinkedIn posts, all sounding super, super smart and super, super scary. And, like second brains and all this mentioned talk. And then when you break it down, it's really not that scary. And there's some real just basic foundational things that can be done. So that's kind of really what I want to cover today, and how to get people started on it and thinking about it. So I'm sure the majority of people, I know I've even been in some meetings with these people in this webinar today, where we've talked about agents, we've talked about AI can surely do that, etc. So this is for the people that definitely, have Googled it on the way home going, how the hell do we do that? So let's crack on. So what is an agent actually? So basically an agent, when you strip away all the jargon of everything, an AI agent is just four components working together. It is the AI model that it's running on, whether that be Claude, an open AI model, Google's Gemini, something else. It's the instructions it's given, i.e. the prompt it's given, normally the job description. So you're telling the model exactly how to function, what it's meant to be doing, what the output's meant to be. It's the context, it's the knowledge you're giving it, your SOPs, your brand voice, the client data, everything it needs to know. And then finally, it's the tools. So that is what an AI agent is. It's broken down into four parts. And, they can be interchangeable and different things. But essentially, that's what it is. It's nothing more, nothing less than these four elements interweaving together. So the key thing to know before you start on like any kind of AI agent and any AI model, and for anyone that's played in GPT or Claude will know this, they can be super, super smart, but they're also really stupid. But that's because they don't have context. They don't have your company. They don't know your company. They don't know your processes. So, I really do refer to it like an intern on day one or a junior on day one. They can be super smart, but if they know nothing about your company, the output they're going to give you is never going to be where it needs to be for your company. But an agent with all those tools, with all that context, can absolutely be like a senior team member, pumping out content, not just content, but pumping out tasks, pumping out insights, but it's got to have all that context. Oopsie daisy, wrong one. There we go. So, the spectrum of what level people will be at. So, most people who've played in a GPT or Claude will be at level 1. Prompt, write me this, do me this, give me this. What do you think of this topic? Generic input, generic output. This is where people that are playing with AI probably most still sit. Level 2 is you can be... I've labelled it here an agent. It's not really an agent. You give context to like a browser desktop, a browser version. So you give Claude browser your brand guidelines, some general rules. You can build a skill like there to call those type of documents and have a repeatable task. That'd be level 2. Level 3 is something that basically like a Claude Code level where you can build all those elements, but also then build it into workflows where they chain together to give you a deeper output, a deeper task. Do multiple tasks in a row to provide context from one agent to another. Most marketing teams are probably at level 1, maybe level 2 starting out, but certainly the fastest movers are well beyond probably level 3 plus. So I want you to meet Claude Code. I'm sure everyone has seen screenshots of Claude in action, Claude Code in action of LinkedIn, everywhere about. It's not scary. I know some of my team have certainly been wary of it and scared of it. And by no means am I I've never used a terminal in my life, basically, before this, ever. I would avoid it at all costs, whereas now I live in it. So basically, Claude Code is a tool that you can use to build, run skills, agents, and run your company from now, basically. It lives in what's called your terminal. The interface is just a conversational chat. It's just another version of your Claude browser. It looks more scary, but it's not. Once you get to know it, once you get to understand how it functions and how it responds to you. And as a bonus, Anthropic have just enabled you to download Claude desktop version and connect it to Claude Code. So it can be even less scary once you set it up and looks like a pretty browser. Claude Code's free to install, but you've got to pay for either API usage or your Anthropic monthly contract. But the real value is in how you set it up. So for some people, I know that installing Claude Code can be really scary. The simplest way to do it that I found, because I've worked with a number of my team to help install it and walk them through it, is it can be tricky sometimes, depending on your computer setup and some things like that. But the simplest thing is don't even bother reading the documentation. Go to Claude browser, ask it how to install on your computer, your machine. Then follow those instructions. There's a couple little things you have to do in terms of going into some settings on we're on Microsoft computers here. So if you have to go into some extra settings and add some little minor things, it will take 3-4 minutes max. If you hit a problem, copy that problem that Claude is telling you, or Claude Code, the prompt, the terminal is telling you, give it back to Claude in your browser and say, this is the problem I'm facing, what do I do? That's it. It will walk you through it. It has seen the problems before. It knows what problems people hit. I've had to do that for one of our computers here, and it took me 10 minutes instead of 3 or 4. But we got there. So that is honestly, give it a shot. Nothing's going to break on your computer just by installing it. Worth giving a crack. So once you've got your Claude Code connected to Anthropic, your API or your normal monthly bill, the first thing you need to do, say hello, have a play. After that, set up your what's called a Claude MD file. This is the foundation. This is where you start. This is your master document for. It's the first thing it's the first thing Claude will read when it starts up every time. It's the first thing any skill or agent will look at before running. So in this document, you want to give it the foundation of who you are, how you work, what matters. So the about your agency, who you work, or your clients or your company, who you work for, what's your core positioning, what's your values, all that brand fluff that makes you, your company, right? All that real stuff that differentiates you from others. You want to give it a writing style. You want to give it that personality. You want to make sure it's not going to pump out your crap in American English. That's the foundation to start with, those kind of levels, right? Then once you've built out some other tools, which I'll go on to in a minute, your Claude MD file starts to list them in there. So you've got this tool, this tool, this tool, or this agent, and I'll show you the structure in a minute. But again, this is the hub of where everything gets looked at first. It is basically like when a new team member comes on. No, Jacinta, I'm sorry, I don't do Copilot. But the similar rules would apply, right? Like, you need to give these foundations and the structure, which all applies across. And you can, once you've got the structure that I'm going to show you, because they're all just what's called MD files, they can be taken across platforms. You could take this and give it to OpenAI another time. This is the key work that you can transition between platforms. If some other platform gets 10 times better, maybe you go that way. You're hiring a new team member. What's everything you need to give that new team member to know what they're doing to start the job at your company? That's what you're trying to do with this first file. So, the rules. This is the second layer that sits under that, what I call it? The Claude MD file. These are more specified files. So they're the same type of structure. Again, you're giving it your brand. Maybe you already have brand guidelines and you've got really detailed brand guidelines. You can just upload them and say, here's my brand guidelines, record them in my brand file. It will summarize them into an MD file and put it into your library or your knowledge base, what we'll call it knowledge base. So we've got, in Firewire, we've got a brand one, we've got a content instructions, if we're producing any content, we've got a Google Ads one, Meta Ads, and an SEO one. And I'll show you all them broken out in a minute as well. But essentially it's, again, all these rules you are giving and structure you're giving to your agents and to the skills as well. And just to Claude in general if you're just chatting to it. So why does it matter? Of course it matters, because if you brief anybody into a task and they don't know you in detail, they're going to give you crap output. This is all about trying to define the standard that you want when you're engaging with this. So this is one of the things that I wish I had known when I first started. It's a knowledge base. I see it bandied about as a second brain, all this kind of mumbo jumbo fluff talk. But essentially all it is it's the way you think. It's your SOPs, your standard operating procedures. It's the way you tackle problems. It's your checklist when you go and, maybe you do a technical audit. And here's your checklist of all the things you need to tick. Maybe you're doing a Google Ads audit. It's all the things that you would go off and manually check in that Google Ads account that you are giving to... I'm not saying you have to get Claude to do it, but what we're trying to do here is create that checklist. So if you do connect up a tool, it knows what processes it wants to go through, and it knows what processes that you go through. So the way this is structured is you've got your Claude MD file at the top. We've got our agents listed, skills, workflows, rules. Then we've got a knowledge base. Within that knowledge base, this one for us, it's broken down into Google Ads, SEO, Meta Ads, and a couple other minor little things in there. We can see like social search, awards, case studies. Within that, you've got your SOPs, your mental models, checklists, references, some theory. And the theory stuff and guideline stuff is really just about, there's no actions really in them, but it's a way we're trying to get the agent to think about a problem or think about a task. Now, not the way these files are written, see, we can have an index here. So that index is basically a long list for an agent to check against. So instead of trying to read like an SEO agent, say we've got one of them, say we've got a research agent. Instead of a research agent trying to read every single file that's in here to understand what it needs to do, number one, it's already got a couple of direct links to what it needs. Might be only 3 references in that file. But it's also got access to that index to know if it needs to think about something else. It can look at that index of all this lists and a very short 1-sentence line about what it is. And so if it wants to, it can go and look at that. And it's already got the summary, and it makes it really quick for an agent or skill to go and look at. So for us, we've got currently, I mean, I'm updating this all the time, but yesterday I think we're at 648 files across our knowledge base. A lot of these have come from, honestly, people sharing great ideas on LinkedIn, and I'll take it and talk to Claude about and build a model out of it, build a way to think about it. A lot of our SOPs just that we've built over the years. A lot of me just asking it, hey, I think we've got a gap here. How could we fill this gap with a SOP, with a thing? So maybe it's not something I've ever found, but Claude understands what's there and what's not there. So there's lots of things to be able to hit, but this is absolutely one of the things that I wish I had known 6 months ago. So what are MCPs? MCPs are the tools you give Claude. It's the hands. It's the stuff that actually does something. It's to connect it to the wider world. I've referred it here. It's like the USB for AI. It just plugs in and play, basically. It's referred to as Model Context Protocol, but MCPs is fine. How to connect one. I'd ignore what I've written there, basically. But if you find most heaps of tools are advertising them now, and they're generally just if you look up any of your reputable tools that you use and you search for tool GitHub MCP, you will see a way where you can copy a little code like this, MCP add, copy that into your Claude terminal, and it will basically do it for you. And it will prompt you, maybe you need to log in, maybe you need to connect your API, and it will just tell you how to do it. So do not be scared by that. They are super simple to connect, particularly for some real basic ones. For us, our kind of biggest used ones are Notion API to connect with our project management software. And what's the other one? And GitHub for us as well, because I'm always updating the files, and that's where all our kind of code lives, and the rest of my team can download it from GitHub when I've updated something. So that's super fast. But yeah, I've got a bit of a list here of a number of the ones we use. There's a bit of a breakdown here of we've built some internally for some sole purposes where we didn't really have, there wasn't really one that plugged and play. But most of these are just plug and play, like Hrefs, plug and play, great, super good one, that one. Firecrawl, just basically crawls websites if you give it access. Chrome DevTools can open a browser for you and take actions. So it can, that's a crazy one. You'll see your browser open and go visit a website, go action something on the website and test it out. So lots and lots of opportunity here, but this is our core kind of MCPs that we use on a regular basis. Some of the agents we've got. So we've got 70 agents within our team. Now, obviously, we do not use, by far and away, we do not use them all every single day or every single week. There's probably a core kind of 15, I'd say, we use. All the others that I've built are ad hoc tasks. Maybe we need them once a month. Maybe they're just like a pet project I had an idea for. I don't know, one of our CRO agents I had an idea for and built out. But haven't really had a need to use it too much. But here's just some examples of what we've got. So we've got like Bob, who does our blog outlines or our content outlines. So he'll go do research, go scrape the search results, go pull in the top keywords, ranking for things. Oh, sorry, that's Oliver. Oliver will do the research. Bob will create the outline from Oliver's research. We've got Quinn, who's the quality rater, so they've just got the context of all the Google quality rater guidelines and a few other quality elements in there, and they'll review that content that it's produced, and then provide feedback to the agent above them, and then it can be rewritten with that feedback in there. We've got some backstep for writing, page for page titles, and we've got Finn, a fact checker, which is actually really, really important element, which I'll touch on a bit later as well. So yeah, there's just some examples of some agents we've got. Then you've got some skills, and then finally a workflow example here. So example skill is look at, we've got a Google Ads context one here. So Google Ads context one we've got is, we have a skill which scrapes basically all the data from the Google Ads account. So their performance over the past 90 days, their search terms, just all the data on the account, geo performance, and loads and saves it in a client file. Basically, so if we're looking at it again in, say, 2 weeks' time, you don't necessarily, you might still want to go scrape fresh results, but you've got a base of context there of where they started, what they were doing. So that's a really quick, that's a good little skill to have. An account audit you might run. Meeting prep, that's a great one I built the other day, where we just basically pull the client files off Notion. It might go check our Gmail and go scrape all the last 10 emails from the client, so it's got the context there. And it'll give you a bit of a meeting recap of before you're in the meeting to know what you need to talk about, what's outstanding, what's been done, everything you need for the client, so you don't have to manually go do it. Another skill, landing page audits, kind of just mentioned that one a little bit. But yes, you can go and scrape both the copy of a site and take images of the site and score it against your CRO elements, whether that conversion copy, whether that's different on-page elements, and it gives you feedback. We also do have a skill as well that will go and recreate a proper landing page, which we got built the other week, and it surprised me with how bloody good it is. So yeah, I'll probably do more with that one at some point. I've already touched on the content workflow a little bit, but here's a little bit of example. So what we've got, seven agents there. Probably actually have more in this workflow, but I think I ran out of space. So we've got a research agent, outlier agent, write, fact check. Really, really important because Claude can make up stuff, or sometimes it will just be lazy. That's probably the better way to put it. Like the intern can be lazy. We've got an editor, got a schema element, and then Lindy at the end will look at the client's existing content and add internal links in to an existing content. So at the end of the day, none of this is about replacing you or your team. It's making you faster at your job, and you've still got to have all that oversight. So how do you build one? You don't build it, you describe it. So once you're in Claude, you don't actually need to be a genius to create a skill or an agent. You just need to know what you want. You need to know how to do the task yourself. The biggest tip I can give here is, again, something that I didn't do at the start when I first started. I never used this. It's called the plan command, literally just /plan. It puts you into plan mode. And what that does is it makes Claude think much more strategically about, number one, everything it knows about you already, such as your knowledge base, all the skills you've already got, if you've built any before, or the agents you've got. So instead of just going off and doing a task, which, I first started when I did, and it may not be the most efficient way or the best way to do it, when you do the plan command, it will really, really think about everything and plan it out. And then it also gives you an opportunity. It shows you it's thinking. And it shows you what it's planning to implement, and it shows you why it's planning to implement it. This is really good because what it does is it gives you the ability to review that and go yes or no, or hey, this is good, or this part's bad, or I want to change this part, or sometimes you might even be able to go, hey, you've if you know your stuff for your job, you can go back to Claude and say you've missed this part or you've missed this thinking, which it can do. It's not the be all end all solution. You've still got to know your stuff. So at the end of the day, if you can brief a team member or write an SOP for yourself, you can absolutely build a skill or an agent. Another thing that I had a friend, Jen, tell me when she was playing around with this a few months back, and I've implemented it since, is the way you got to talk to Claude. You've got to push back. Sometimes, and I've seen this in the browser versions as well. You ask it to do a task, you ask it a question, and it gives you a response. Or if say you're creating a marketing strategy for a client. You give it a basic input, make me a marketing strategy for this client. It gives you output that's pretty basic. It's giving you a real quick answer. If you can push back on that, one of the best things I've ever done is question it back. Is this the best you can do? And it will respond, no, it's not. And it will think about it again. Now that same rule applies for both the browser base and Claude Code. Often I'll push back and it will give me a better output. And sometimes I'll do it generally 2 times. The second output it gives me is way, way better. The third output is probably almost too far sometimes. It's too detailed or it's too out there. But it's worth trying to push back on it to get a better output, get a better skill outline, get a better agent outline, get a better result for what you're trying to do. But absolutely push back on it, and that's definitely something I wish I had when I first started as well. Output's definitely dramatically better. So here's an example of a real output. So last week, I connected up really, really detailed Google Ads knowledge base and a few really, really detailed skills. And one of the things in there was basically an account audit for Google Ads. So I wanted to test it out on basically nearly all our Google Ads clients. So I ran it through, I gave it access to our Google Ads. Now, mind you, we're not necessarily changing anything in the account. All we're trying to do is assess the account, check what's going on in it, check performance. So in one day, I audited 22 Google Ads clients. And one of them, for an example, had 100 tasks it came back with. Now, not all those tasks are absolutely needed to be done immediately, but there's a couple of issues in there that it would pick up that, we probably do want to look at. We were then able to basically prioritize those tasks, push them into our Notion, assign them in our Notion in a day. 22 account audits, all the tasks assigned, and the team can start working through them. So that kind of just shows you, the power of it. God knows how long it would have taken to audit 22 Google accounts in that level of depth by hand, manually. So this is a question from Sean, and I think I've seen it come up from Rachel there a little bit. Can you trust it? Yes, but the answer is you shouldn't trust it blindly. Just like you wouldn't trust the junior starting out. You wouldn't trust them you'd review all their work. That's what you've still got to do, right? You have to review the output. You have to have steps in the process for human in the loop. So maybe in that workflow example for our content, we don't necessarily have a human in the loop at every step, but we certainly have a human in the loop at the outline stage, right? So it's done it, we stop it, or it stops automatically, we get updated, we know what the output is, we double check it. Is it right? Is it on the right track? Is it making up things, or is it completely gone haywire? Now, 90% of the time it's absolutely fine. But there are occasions in there where it does need you to push back on it, or it does need you to edit manually. As I've already touched on, we've got an agent in there that does check fact checking. It's not necessarily that it makes up facts. It will pull from sources, but you need to make sure those sources are legit, right? And that's what that's for. It's to make sure that any claims you're making can be backed up and be backed up by reputable citations. The other element that's in there you can give it is scoring itself. So you can build a skill or a step in the process, a step in the workflow, where it's going to score itself on performance. And if you hit a certain threshold, needs to be you need to human in the loop, check it, manually check it. And one that I know can concern some people is about the data. The Claude Code has become a lot stricter. So number one, when you have Claude Code, it's on your machine. So that's not necessarily going to be, it's not public, right? Number two is all your APIs. Claude Code has become really strict on even giving them back to you in a terminal. So there are, more things coming on that side from Anthropic to limit the security concerns. So, wrapping up, where to start? You definitely don't need 70 agents, and you definitely don't need all the knowledge files on day one. I didn't have them. It's taken 12 months. But you need to start. You need to install Claude Code, whether Mac or Windows. It takes 5 minutes. You can do it. Start with your Claude MD file. Ask it to ask you questions about your company. You can make it a interview process. What does it need to know? And then you can just literally type it back in. Add your first rule that sits under that. Brand voice, tone, language, whatever you need to do, you write it down once, or you give it to it once. It knows it. Connect your first tool, whether that's a Notion, a GA4, Search Console, Google Ads, whatever you want to play with. Maybe it's Hrefs. I was thinking that's one of the first tools we connected up on Claude Browser. Build your first skill, and then finally build your first agent. And that is it for the day.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. We've got a few questions to get through, so that's exciting. Little claps. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. So I just want to come back to Jacinta's question. So just checking about if what we've learned today will work on other platforms like Copilot Agent. Obviously not going to be able to use it as a direct instruction manual, but do you think translatable as an approach?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's about getting your knowledge and your company's processes onto the system, right? All the MD files I've got onto Claude Code now can be pulled out and translated or just passed over to any other system.
Yeah. Rachel also, you touched a little bit on the trust, but Rachel's asked us if there are security concerns at the basic level when connecting Claude Code or any AI models to workplace infrastructure. So I think it's a little bit more like security of data and security of privacy and that sort of stuff. So any security concerns we should be aware of at SharePoints, yeah.
But it's the same when you're connecting anything to anything, right? Like there's always going to be security concerns. I would just be careful about connecting it to anything that's got, client data in terms of like privacy concerns.
Lauren also asked us, is it possible to have the agents with more broad responsibilities, or is it better to have them very specific to individual tasks like you have?
It's better to have them at very specific tasks. When you give it specific tasks, you give it the guardrails for that task. So you give it a a very defined output. You give it very defined rules of what it can and can't do. You give it examples, all that type of stuff. When you do more broad is almost more just for like a normal chat, right? But it's not necessarily going to do it as good as you want it to. That's probably the answer there.
Yeah. And we ran a couple of polls. So one of the ones that I ran was on tasks. What have you been wanting to outsource to AI? So just as an extension of that question, I thought I'd throw this in. What kind of tasks do you think that agents, as they are now, are particularly suitable for?
All of that. We got one the other day. I built one the other day, which I've been wanting to build for ages. Basically a meeting prep, right? So all this admin stuff. I'm terrible at admin. My team will know that. But it basically, I built one the other day that connects to what's the tool called Granola. It's a meeting transcriber, records your meetings, and then it extracts the summaries. And then the MCP that they've built out, you can pull that into Claude Code, and then it will just take all the tasks and then upload into Notion. So it's taken, and then even write an email summary, summarizing the meeting, who needs to do what out of that meeting. It's taken, a half-hour task that no one ever wants to do to a 2-minute task. So all these areas, admin, absolutely. Onboarding, yes. We've built built an agent for that, for our onboarding, that will go and create all our Notion client files, all the tasks in Notion, assign them, go create the Google Drive folders for the client. We'll draft the email for the client, like the client welcome email, kickoff email. I think if you're only using it for content, not to say we don't use it for content, but if you're only using it for content, you're only scratching the surface. And yeah, I'll bang on the content element till the cows come home. But the people take shortcuts, right? They give it, just go make me this piece of content. That's no good. You need many steps in those processes to make it quality.
Yeah. I remember having a conversation with someone about this when it was first emerging. We were first creating all this stuff. And I was like, it's actually odd. You kind of have to go back to how jobs used to be prior to the internet, which was like, you would have someone whose sole job was, like, let's say you're a publication or a publisher. You've got someone whose sole job is to research, someone whose sole job is to put the content together, someone whose sole job is to fact check it and edit it, and then someone's, you'd have this pipeline of, 7 or 8 people all delving deeply into this one specific area. And there's very few jobs that are actually like that now. I think publishing is still one of the only places I think that does it. They have like 5 different versions of editing that they do. I 100% agree. It's very, very specific tasks. I'm just looking at the list you've got for what tasks have you been wanting to outsource, and you had reporting on there. I think reporting's an interesting one as well, because reporting can absolutely be pulled. Like, we've got our Google Ads connected, we've got our GA4 connected, we've got our Search Console connected. But if you're just pulling that data straight, it's still lacking all that context. So it doesn't, unless you've got, again, very, very specific instructions to a skill or an agent about what it needs to look at, what it's comparing against, what does the client want to know, what are the key goals for the client, what's the business context for the client, because it will write you a beautiful summary email, but often you'll find, if it doesn't have all that context, it's putting stuff in there that you've either told the client, isn't a priority, or there's other context of a decline, and it will be like, oh, look at this, there's a massive decline, panic button, and you've already talked to the client about that, right? So you've got to connect it to your emails so it can see that context. It's got to have the meeting summary
to know what you've already talked about in a meeting with a client. So it's definitely not as simple as just connecting Google Search Console and getting it to pull the data. Yes, that can be very helpful for you in a job just to get quick summaries.
Yeah.
But in terms of anything client-facing, sent to client, absolutely not, without really in-depth context.
Yeah. And I think it's good to have a really deep understanding of all the moving parts of a task to commit to this. And also, the human in the loop aspect is like, where is the crossover between where you need to cognitively carry the load, a lot of these as well. So yeah, actually building agents out you have to have a very, very deep understanding of all these moving parts and where you really need to have that cognitive load. Simon sent us a question. When using agents for client work, do you need to set up a new .md for it to work off? How does that work so your output aligns to their brand and market, etc.?
Great question, Simon.
Good question.
The answer is yes. So I didn't have it in this example because what you're talking about there is getting quite advanced, right? But you can essentially have client folders under your knowledge base, or might be another arm off the knowledge base, where you can store those details. Again, I hadn't rolled it out that way at first. The way I had originally rolled it out was creating a business context file in our Notion account for clients. So business context under the client's Notion account. And I basically just had the agents call the Notion file when they were running anything. However, now to save on it calling it, I've linked those two. I've linked one into a client MD file, business context, brand positioning, competitors, market positioning, what their goals are, all that stuff that you'll do in like a brand discovery or business discovery, into a client file sitting under the MD structure.
And we also got a question from Despina. What's your tech stack like for knowledge management across your team? Do you store client info in SOPs in Notion and each member of your team then pulls these into their own devices or / into the / knowledge folder? How does that work?
So Despina, I kind of just touched on it, right? So yes, I had started on, and to be fair, all our clients still have knowledge files in their in our Notion files for the client, which anyone in our team can update. However, I have also moved, because I'm getting basically all our team onto Claude Code, and I'll drag Sean kicking and screaming there. But I needed a way to be able to, if I updated something on my machine in my code, I wanted them to be able to have it act easily. So the way we do that is you have your own GitHub, and my God, again, I've never coded in my life. I've vaguely ever heard of GitHub, and I kind of knew what it was, but I've never played in it or had to code anything in my life. I had to learn, what a push and commit is, which, it's not that complicated, but, it took me a little while to work it out. But essentially now, if I make an update on my machine, if I improve a skill or a problem happens, like an output isn't as expected, I can jump onto my machine, edit that up, talk to Claude about the problem, fix up that problem, push it to GitHub, push it and commit to GitHub. Then my team can download that within a minute, 2 minutes later. They can have that problem solved and the latest version.
Chelsea sent us a question as well. Yeah. Is there anything you do to actively conserve token usage?
That's a great question, Chelsea. Honestly, I've actually only just started thinking about this in the past kind of couple of weeks. I've found, and I'm sure some people here as well, Claude can be addictive, right? You get in there and you're building and building and building. You're solving problems. You're doing a month's worth of work in one day. But you can chew through your tokens. You can chew through the money. The way I've started to tackle it, and I've kind of already touched on that, is to try and... Two key things I'm trying to do. Number one is trying to keep the context on the machine locally so it doesn't have to call APIs and all that. To provide stricter instructions on what we actually need it to do. And so instead of letting an agent go and pull, 50 documents to try and find something, you specify, hey, in the instructions, it's this folder that you want it to go look at. Rather than just say, go look for this file in, Workspace. I want to find, you need to specify what folder it's in or a file type, and it can be much more targeted in how it's run. So they're the kind of two key things that I've taken to try and save some tokens.
Like that. I think another question I'm going to throw out there as well is considering, like, it is quite a lot of upfront work. So who do you think, like, what kind of level do you need to be operating at? Do you think it's worth to actually start bringing these agents in?
I don't think, you start with one.
Yeah.
Actually, honestly, I wouldn't even start with an agent.
Yeah.
I would start with just installing Claude, getting an MD file, your basic MD file started, and then start thinking about, well, what tools do I use every day? Is it Ahrefs? Is it SEMrush? Is it, Google Ads every day? Then connect that up, that one tool. Play with that. Then all of a sudden you'll start to go, all right, well, what's the start to think then, what's the one task that I do every day? Okay, well, I jump into Google Ads every day and see how much we've spent. Maybe that's the task you do. Well, you can ask Claude to go and pull that for all your accounts you run. Or you can ask Claude, if you're connected to Search Console, the summary of the performance for the last month, and it will give it to you in 30 seconds. So it's not necessarily about trying to do all this. It's not about trying to create 100 SOPs. It's not about trying to get your brain out onto a document. Just start with the one task you do every day or every week, and distill that. And then one of the ways that I touched on it about trying to create a skill or an agent. So now you've got your task that you do. You go into plan mode. You go, I do this task every day. We have this tool connected. This is the 3-step process that I do. I want to look up the account. I want to check how much they spent and compare it to last month. How many conversions they had compared to last month. And that's it. That's the skill you want. And you want it to run on every account every morning. And so you can jump on, open up your terminal, go Google Ads review, and it will run that for you every day.
Yeah.
Or every time you prompt it.
Another question from Chelsea. Thank you. Have you experimented with Cursor or Codex plus Claude?
I have. I've experimented with Cursor. I know lots of people use it for the functionality of you're basically able to view your folders and different structures, and you can jump in and out of different folders to run Claude from. I personally just, maybe buried my head in the sand and didn't want to learn a new thing. I was so set on just, running in the terminal, and I was so used to it that I didn't ever go back to Cursor. I know heaps of people use it though. Heaps of people use it.
Yeah. So what for anyone who doesn't know, what's Cursor or Codex?
It's a coding terminal. It's another terminal type thing, but it's more like a standard desktop app kind of thing, all right? And it's just a way to view and access different files. It will show you the folders you can see, so you can drag files into it a lot easier. At the moment, if you want to... Yeah, it's like Notion for a terminal. Yeah, basically, that's it, yeah. Thanks, Chelsea, on that one. But... because, you know, the way I just do it is that, you know, if I want Claude to go look at a file I have on my computer, I'll just go and copy the path and paste it in.
Yeah.
But that's what I'll do.
So Rachel sent us another question. Are the agents easy to turn off if something goes wrong?
Rachel, they're not on, basically. So they're only on if you trigger it. So if you give it the task. And the tasks are triggered by a specific command. So the two ways to trigger agents or skills are, number one is you can give it a / command. So you might call it by its name, you know, /Bob. I want Bob to run this one or this content research. Or you type that out. Hey, Claude, I want Bob to run this, and you don't do the / command. But other than that, the agent's not running. It's just waiting for you to give it a task. He's sitting at his desk in the corner waiting.
I guess another way to put that would be like once the agent is triggered and you don't like what it's doing, maybe it's really gone off the rails somehow. What can you...
You can stop it.
Stop it. Yes.
Yeah, you can stop it. You can just press escape and it will stop.
Escape.
And you can tell it. Because what you'll do is, and I think I had a screenshot there where on one of my screenshots, it showed some of its thinking, right? If you're like me, you might just, you know, maybe there's very few people like me who just sit and watch it. But it'll watch its thinking, right? And how it's processing, what documents it's calling, what tools it's calling. If I don't like the way it's headed, you just escape. You press escape, it will stop. You can give it feedback on, hey, I don't think you've thought about this, or hey, I think you're going down this the wrong way. Yeah, that's probably what I'd say there.
As an extension of this, as well, I'm going to throw out another question that I get a lot as well, is how hard or like how much work is involved in like maintaining agents? Like, is there anything you really need to do to maintain them, or they just if you need to update them?
No, I think there probably is something to do in maintaining them, but it's not as hard as that sounds. We had a case yesterday where one of our content processors, we wanted to output into our kind of templated Google Doc. And, you know, all the ones we ran last month, perfectly fine. All of a sudden this month, it wasn't doing what it was meant to do. So all you do in that case, and all I do in that case, is, again, go into plan mode, tell Claude what it's doing wrong, and say, why are you doing this to me? Get angry at it. Why the hell are you doing this to me? Why are you wasting my time? It will go review it will go review it. It will go review all the code in that workflow and find the likely problem. Now, an example I had yesterday, it found a problem. There was a conflicting instruction in there that it had created at some point, or probably like it had updated at some point and hadn't updated another part. It fixed that issue. Then when we tested it, it still didn't work. So I again went back. Hey, it's still not working. Do it. Please don't come back to me until you fix this. It again reviewed it and found one other thing that was slightly out of whack that shouldn't have been there, and it removed it. And now no problem. That probably took me 10, 15 minutes for it to work through, and I let it run and I'll go do another task. I'll go do something else, right? But yeah, I probably haven't had to touch that workflow for 4 months.
Yeah. Okay. So it's minimal. Man. Yeah.
Unless you're trying to actively improve on it and expand on it. one of the things that I did on that content workflow like the week before, which I don't know, maybe I caused that problem, was I was getting one of the tools to scrape Reddit and get Reddit answers, and getting somehow language is used on Reddit to be able to pull into our content. And so I've changed some of the settings to be able to pull that into our document at the end. So maybe I broke it, but it's not, unless you're aiming to actively improve on things. Most things will run once you've worked it out.
Yeah. How long, on average, do you think it takes you to build an agent?
A basic agent you can build in 20 minutes, half an hour. When you're getting deeper and deeper, though, you could be on a process for, like, I'm talking really in-depth workflows for the day, 2 days.
Yeah. One last question before we tune out. So Sal has sent a question. Do you ever run into issues of it using too many credits by approaching a task wrong? Any tips for guardrails to make sure it's efficient in its usage?
Yeah, definitely. Particularly when I just get carried away and want it to run and run and run and run.
Yeah.
But that comes back to the task you've given it, and it's sorry to touch on it there. It doesn't have the guardrails, so you haven't given it specific path or instructions to contain it to what you need to do. Which, when you think about, going back to the analogy of like the intern, right? If you give an intern just go do this task, right? They might go off on multiple tangents. Oh, here you go. I was talking to a client the other day, and they had hired someone to be a growth marketer, and they had done it. Had taken them 10 full days to map out like 10 pages of keywords. That was it. Like, that was 10 full days of wasted time. So again, they didn't have those guardrails. They didn't have it. It's the same for Claude. You have to give it specific instructions. So you give it an example of what's the task, what's the outcome you're expecting, what are the steps it should do, all these things that you would go through in creating a task, right? Or getting to that solution. And then also importantly, it can also be what you don't want to happen. Like, hey, I don't want you to do this. That's how I'd kind of look at Sally's guardrails there.
Yeah, a negative keyword list for Claude.
Well, negative tasks. Don't go and do this. Don't go do this.
Yes, yeah.
And that doesn't have to be complicated. And that only and you only get that knowledge with time to play with it.
Yes.
And to know how it's doing things.
All right. I think we're out of time. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in. Thank you, Brogan, for running us through that. I had a weird brain idea while we were talking through that. I was like, maybe it would be fun to try and build these together for people who've never done it. I've never done it. So if anyone would be interested in joining my shenanigans and trying to build an agent and learn
Sean,
how to do it as well.
I do still have to get you on Claude Code.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do a workshop to get you on it and
Build-a-bot workshops. Yes.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. If you're keen, let me know. I will make it happen. And we'll just be a bunch of noobs together. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, people are keen.
I'm going to run a workshop now.
Well, I was going to run it as a person who has no idea what they're doing, and we're all just going to be
fine.
people.
Maybe I can just watch you.
Yeah, just go for the laughs, honestly. All right. I will get that going. Please connect with Brogan and follow him on LinkedIn because he shares amazing stuff there about AI. We also have AI on Fire, which is our newsletter, which we are definitely going to get back to. And if you've enjoyed today's presentation, please go check out Edge of Search. Edgeofsearch.com is where you can find out information about this year's conference that's happening September 4th, 2026, back at Newcastle City Hall. and we're going to be bringing you more original, innovative content just like this. So early bird tickets are still on sale till April 30. We've only got like 2 weeks.
Go buy
So
your tickets.
best price you're going to get. So yeah, go grab your tickets. Thank you so much, guys.